My name is Tori Pritchett, and today is March 28th, and this week there were 58 reported cases of COVID-19 in the Charlotte-Mecklenburg County area, which shows a 20% decrease over the last 2 weeks. Therefore, each subject is comfortable not wearing a mask. And today I have the pleasure of interviewing Ray. I'm going to give him the opportunity to introduce himself.
Hi, my name is Raekwon Davis. I go by Ray. I'm a senior here at Johnson C. Smith University from Hopewell, Virginia, sport management major.
All right, Ray. And with you saying that you're from Hopewell, is that where you were born?
Yes, born and raised.
Okay. And how did you find out about Johnson C. Smith or just coming to Charlotte?
So, growing up, the situation I grew up in, neither one of my parents, biological, went to college or finished high school. So going through the school system, I met this individual who became a mentor and became a godfather, and he went to Johnson C. Smith University in the 70s. So he took me under his wing. He taught me about what it was to become a Smithite, and now I'm here.
All right. And are you still close with your godfather? Do you all still talk? Is he still guiding you?
Absolutely, every day.
Every day.
20 years in.
All right, and that's amazing. I do want to take the time to reflect on the activity that we did before we started the interview. If you could share some things that, stuck with you.
So I use 5 words to identify myself. 1 being resilient, the other being persistent, another outgoing, smart, and funny. So on the center, 3 things to identify with Army, college, and my childhood. Would you like me to touch on that?
Yeah, you definitely can.
So
those are your 3 journeys?
Yeah, 3 journeys, excuse me. So my journey in the Army, it wasn't easy. Nothing in life is easy, but I entered the Army and I entered right before the pandemic and I discharged during the pandemic. So that was an experience within itself. And then getting hurt, finding out I had 3 tumors on my liver and not being able to do what my peers were able to do. I entered the Army, the world was one way, and coming home, the world was totally upside down. So I was at college. I started in 2015. I've always had trials and tribulations, not being able to come back my sophomore year because of financial issues, and then not being able to come back my junior year because of academic issues. So it's always been an uphill battle when it came to school. So I put that up there. Childhood. I didn't have the best upbringing. Mm-hmm. My mom wasn't there, my father wasn't there. I was raised by my great-grandparents. Luckily, I found, my mentor, my godfather, and he helped me the best way he could, but I grew up very rough, and, some days going to school, that would be my meal, me and my brother, who was a year younger than me, we had to share clothes, and it was just rough, but I think it made me the man that I am today. It made me strong. So that's another reason why for the next exercise, I put mental strength. How I guided myself through the pandemic, how my childhood, was sketched out, it helped me through the pandemic. I was already mentally prepared for it. And then on the outside of my palm, on the exercise, I use family, friends, the kids I mentor, my business, and the ability to wake up every day and be able to start fresh. The pandemic has taught me to never take life for granted. I lost so many people, friends and family members. I saw so many friends and family members lose their loved ones. One minute you can be here today and gone tomorrow. So I say, anytime someone asks me how am I doing, I say I'm blessed, because as my grandmother would say, you woke up on the right side of the dirt.
Yeah, you're absolutely right about that. I'm glad you were able to share that. Like, that really That was deep. Thank you for sharing that. And I do want to piggyback on something that you stated. You said that you entered the military during the start of the pandemic. So what kind of shifted, you to go in that direction?
So honestly, at that particular point, as I mentioned earlier about college, that I didn't think college would work out for me. First it was financial issues, then it was the academic issues, and as they would say in police terms, 3 strikes and you're out.
Mm-hmm.
And at that particular point, I was like, okay, I got to try something new. I literally have to try something new. So everybody back home was pushing the Army on me and saying, like, you can get a career, you can do 20 years and come back home and still be young. Mm-hmm. This is a way of being able to have health insurance, money in your pocket, et cetera, et cetera. But I just saw the opportunity and took it, and it was more so the people around me who influenced me, to take a chance at it. It's something I fought for a long time, mm-hmm. something I could have done, coming out of high school, but I just looked down on the opportunity, but they provided the resources that I needed at that moment.
Okay. And what was the process like? Was it different being that we were in a pandemic? When it came to you contacting recruiters and, getting your paperwork and scheduling appointments, how was that for you?
Yeah, so actually, when the pandemic hit, I was leaving the Army.
Okay.
So it was still the same case. Certain things within my paperwork were slowed down. I remember the first day, the first day that we learned about COVID-19, like it was yesterday. I just came home from the TMC, or came back to my barracks from the TMC, and they said there were 15 cases that were reported, within that area in itself, and one was on Fort Jackson's base, and I had just left. Mm-hmm. And I was sitting right next to the individual who had it. So they tracked me down and they put me and my battle buddy in this utility space. I wouldn't say closet, so I don't want to get nobody in trouble. But, they put us in this space and isolated us from everybody else until they found out, that it was safe for us to, come back with the rest of us. So it was very difficult. It slowed down a lot, mm-hmm. But luckily I'm here.
Yes. And with you transitioning out of the Army, how was that for you, coming back into the real world? I know you mentioned, it was different.
It was rough, honestly. I expected to come home this hero. I expected to come home this big chief of the family. And essentially I still was that to my family. But number one, just coming back home, I felt like a failure because I did get medically discharged. But coming back home during the pandemic, it was like, oh my God, at first I was like, okay, I come home and I'll still be able to live a normal life. But then coming home, everything shut down. Mm-hmm. I mean, you couldn't even walk to freaking McDonald's up the street and get you a cheeseburger. It was a shortage everywhere. So it was new for a lot of us, especially being in a house with so many individuals. My mom, my stepfather, my brother, my uncle at the time, who passed during the pandemic, is all right. And, my great-grandfather who's still living, all of us sitting in that one house, getting on each other's nerves, and then, not having certain resources, when you needed them, not being able to see your friends or family, certain outlets that we were used to, were taken away from us. And, it was rough.
Definitely hear you on that. So what did you do during that time? Was there any, new habits that you created to kind of get out, with us being, so restricted?
I had to develop a routine, I had to this is where I would say that I became a leader, I had to become a man and you know, that kind of sounds a little cliche, but, you know, I had to, you know, I had to do some things that were totally outside of my norm.
Mm-hmm.
And, you know, that was help the family, you know, find resources to be able to go to the store and buy stuff, you know. So I think keeping myself busy and being that for my family kind of was it for me. You know, that's how I stayed sane. You know, if that answers your question.
Yes, definitely.
Yeah, like just being, you know, being there for my mom, being there for others. Like that's the type of person I am. I can care less about myself, you know, as long as everybody else around me good, you know, so doing whatever it took for them to be good, you know, especially my great-grandfather, who the pandemic could have affected, you know, worst out of everybody, him being 89 years old. So
that's a blessing.
Yeah, just making sure he was straight. I was straight. As long as he's straight, I'm good.
So during that time, you didn't really pick up any self-care. Did you do anything for you?
Honestly, I mentioned I developed a routine, you know, and my routine consisted of just waking up, making sure everybody was straight, and, you know, but then when it came to taking care of myself, I would say it was very simple.
Mm-hmm.
It was very simple. Like, I brought a PS5.
Mm-hmm. Oh, you enjoyed that?
Oh, man, I'm not a gamer, you know, but I brought a PS5, you know, played that, you know. Actually did seek mental health training. I mean, you know, counseling.
Okay.
That was the best part for me. Just being able to talk to somebody about what I'm going through, you know, and then, you know, writing in the journal.
Okay, so you journal. That's considered self-care.
Really?
Yeah.
A
form of self-care.
I literally have a journal up, like, in the tub in my room. I have, like, a book. Like, just, you know, today my day was like this. Today my day was like this. You know, then one of my favorite TV shows, Insecure, they had this thing called Self-Care Sunday.
Mm-hmm.
So I do Self-Care Sundays.
Okay. No, that is amazing. That's really good. And I did hear you talk about your business. I know that probably brought joy to your life too.
Absolutely.
So you started that during the pandemic as well?
Absolutely. So my business is Team Supreme. It's an AAU organization, and, you know, we have many different kids in our organization, and it's basketball, you know, but it's way more than basketball, you know, which I'm finding out and learning as I grow. It's way more than basketball. It's making sure kids are straight, make sure their family's straight. Like, during the end of the pandemic, I had a kid, you know, come stay at our house, you know. It's, you know, making sure that they have the proper resources that they need to go to school. You know, buying kids shoes, making sure they have money in their pocket, making sure they can afford meals to eat, because a lot of these kids come from same backgrounds that I come from. They don't have mommy and daddy. It's either no mom, no dad, mom, single mom,
Mm-hmm.
you know, or either they're living with their grandparents like I did, you know. So that's basically what I do. I would love to turn it into a nonprofit. You know, I have an idea in mind, you know, but Team Supreme is my business. That's what I do. It's on the basketball side of it, but it's way more than basketball.
Okay, I love to hear that. And how was it for you? Was it hard explaining, you know, the restrictions to the players and things like that? Was it hard, you know, even, you know, as far as them getting to and from practice and things like that? Like, how was that, you know, especially with a certain amount of people being able to be in a building at one time?
Yeah, absolutely. You know, I can't sit here and lie and say we didn't bend the rules a little bit, but it was more so difficult on their behalf, because a lot of these kids, they have hoop dreams,
Mm-hmm.
and they desire to earn Division I scholarships and eventually go to the NBA and help their parents out with their situation. You know, so not being able to have access to gyms, not being able to, be in the same facility, all at once, that kind of affected a lot of kids. And then just being cooped up in the house, you really can see who really loves the game and who doesn't, honestly. But the mental aspect of it, a lot of kids, they didn't want to come outside and, play basketball because they're out here dealing with grandma's in the hospital or, such and such just passed. So I tried to,
be that
support system for them, through the pandemic. And, what I would do was, like I said, I've been through a little bit, but I would get them all together and we would work out outside.
Mm-hmm.
We'll social distancing, of course, with a mask on as well. But we'll work out outside, we'll do group Zooms, just stay engaged, I'll make sure like college coaches saw that, they're interested, saw their highlights and etc.
Okay. Was it hard contacting them and getting a response?
Absolutely. Contacting them was kind of the easier part. Convincing was the more difficult part.
Okay.
Because there was, a long period of time where the pandemic was taking place, and college coaches had their mindset on certain kids. So in our business, we have a ranking system. So if you went on that ranking system, you had to convince them college coaches that your kid was great versus outside the pandemic, you can play on a platform and show the kids, the kids can show the college coaches that they're great, so it was like, it's like a Gucci bag. It's a Gucci bag.
Yeah.
You gonna spend your money on a Gucci bag.
Yes.
But at the time, was it how you pronounce it? Telfar?
Mm-hmm.
It was just Telfar. Like, before Beyonce wore it.
Yeah.
You get what I'm trying to say?
Yes.
It's like, I'm going to go for the Gucci bag because I know what I'm going to get with my money versus a Telfar. So that's kind of what it was. And I like doing that.
That's pretty good. I like that. For sure. And how did you feel about the restrictions yourself?
I didn't like it.
You didn't like it at all?
I don't like it. I'm outside. I like to be outside. I'm hands-on. Hands-on anything, It's very difficult, being able to do everything virtually like that. Man, it's like me out. I had to do everything virtually, and I don't like it.
And did you transition back to Smith, like as far as going back to school?
Yes.
Okay, so virtual learning for you was not...
No, I love virtual learning.
Okay.
Honestly, and it's probably, total opposite of how I feel about my business. Like, school and business were two totally different things. Virtual learning was very convenient for me. It gave me the ability to be hands-on, my guys, and on top of that, it gave me the ability to have some type of flexibility, and I think I learned better virtually during the pandemic than when we came back this month.
Okay, because it's like we were trying to transition and, see how things are going to work now that everybody's back on campus.
Exactly. And on top of that, some of your best communicators became socially awkward.
Mm-hmm.
Because they're so used to, having conversations through a screen versus face-to-face. So awkward. It was just so awkward. And it still is to a degree. I feel like we're still recovering to a degree.
So what do you think some of the long-lasting consequences are of the pandemic? Communication,
perception. Anytime I see somebody cough or sneeze, I'm just like, oh, there go their COVID. Don't bring it around me. Communication, perception. I would say mental health is definitely a constant. It's still a stigma, right now. Even though the pandemic is technically over. One of my biggest inspirations during the pandemic, honestly, when it came to mental health, was Charlamagne the God.
Okay.
Absolutely. Listening to him talk about him seeking help made me want to seek help. because I come from a community, that going to talk to somebody else, that, the elevator ain't going to the top floor.
It's a taboo.
Yeah, like, oh my, like, you get shunned so much, like, they look at you as if you're weak, and I wanted to, flip that narrative, especially for one day when I had kids, and let them know it's okay to express yourself, tell me how you feeling. We're seeing, a lot of people commit suicide, and, them leaving notes behind, or either their parents or friends wondering, like, what was going on? I wish I would have known, just, mental health right now, number one overall. And that's why I do well for the checks.
Okay.
With my players, with my friends, family, loved ones, anybody. But yeah, I'll find around with.
No, that's great. And I would like to ask, what is a piece of advice that you would give or leave for anybody, that's going through something, or, if something like this was to happen again, what is a piece of advice that you would leave to get them through that time?
I would say, reach out. Don't be afraid to ask for help. 9 times out of 10, the person next to you is going through the same thing or something similar. It's best to get through it together than by yourself. We're stronger together, and just ask for help. Don't feel weak. Don't feel too big. Just ask. If anybody out there needs my help, I'm always here. Honestly, I don't have it all together, but I'm here.
All right. And is there anything else that you would like to share, or leave here on the table for us?
Well, I kind of told y'all I got my own business, but for me personally, I think I covered everything. I would say stay tuned.
Okay.
I have some big things in store. I'm going to do some big things. Never know, one day, you might see your boy on this TV screen.
On the big screen?
Absolutely.
Okay, remember him, Raekwon Davis. All right. Well, the Living Archive teams definitely support you sharing your story. We want to thank you so much for sharing your story today, okay?
Thank you. I appreciate you.
Thank you.